Now let's go over adding groups to the OBM. So what I'm going to do is go over here to my group tree, and let's add a Knox site group. So I double click on Knox sites, and then I hit create. I can give the Knox site a name, and I can call it New York. I can put some of our incidentals in there. I can put the default kind of device that's going to be in there. This isn't too important. You can set up template information for a device. This is if a device is going to be created, how you're going to access it, what are your security credentials going to be in there. Something you may want to put in here is your subnet mask, if it's going to be the same. Do you have a gateway, if it's going to be the same. These can always be changed when you create a device. This will show you real-time log information. System info, this is where you may want to change your password and your key. And your key, you can have the system generate that. You can save that group. Okay, apparently we have a longer password. Okay, so we will just change that there. Do you want to save these to devices that are in the group? No, because there's no devices in the group yet. It's a brand new group. Okay. Then what we can also do is if we double click groups, we can add a remote group. So we have to create a group, and it'll say what users would you like to have associated with that group, which head-end NOC group. I can just select one, or I can select both. So I can say New York, and the name of this group can be my firewalls. Okay, again, I can go with device info. They may all be different, so who knows. Again, this is just a template. My remote access is probably going to be cell tunnel for all my remotes. Again, this is a template. You can always change it per device, but it will make your life a little easier if you have certain parameters you're going to turn on or turn off. Again, subnet masks usually are different at remote locations. Let's say display cellular properties. So here I know, for instance, my APN, which is important. Okay, I'm going to set them all up for 2 antennas. System information, again, this is important. Do you want your devices to be standard or device authentication? Do you want to change the password? And do you want to put a key, change the key in there, which we recommend doing. Okay, we're not going to update devices in the group because there aren't any yet. So what we've just done is we've created a new NOC site and we've created a new remote group. So the first thing I want to do is populate my NOC site, and again we're going to use Discover. I am going to use Network Direct because this is a head-end device, and I am going to, I happen to have already programmed a device. You remember that you have to have this device on the network, and it already has to have an IP address. You can do that through a web browser. Default IP is 199.199.199.1, and you go in there, you can change the network parameters. If you get prompted for a credentials, it's admin. I don't want to update these now. You should. Okay, and we're going to tie this to the firewall group. So we've just brought in a new device. We call this device New York 1124. We've got everything mostly set up already. We discovered it. It's got almost everything already set up for us. So we're just going to save it. And we're going to program it. Program. Reload. And you can't see it here. Let me bring this up. But you'll see that it is processing and getting programmed. So So while that's happening, we can go to our firewall group, we go to our remote sites. We'll see that there's nothing in there right now, but we are going to use the discover function. And here we're going to use cell tunnel because, again, we're using an LTE device. If this was a dial out, we would use network dial out. Or if we were going to do it directly over the network, if we had direct network connectivity, we would do a network direct. Now I need to wait to see this device here get configured, which it is, and I need to put a cell IP address in there. I think that's a valid address. So it's gaining access to my head-end device first. It is then going to reach out over the LTE network and connect to a remote device, and then it's going to discover that device and pull that information in. It will only discover the device if it's set in a default configuration, which is the default password and key. That's why we recommend you change that after you update, after you discover the device and get it into your database. So it's pulling all this information down now. Once that information is down, we're going to save it. We'll probably just change the device name, and then we will push. When we go to program it, then we will have information about the head-end device into that remote so that it can go into encryption. Okay, and it looks like here that this remote device here is probably not in default mode because we're entering the password and it is not going into, it's not able to gain access. So that's good that we were unable to gain access. It's bad for this demonstration, and I guess somebody must have changed that here. So I'm going to try to find another device that we can log into. As soon as this thing closes the connection, come on. Okay, so we will now go to a, I think I have another device here. Again, we're going out to our head-end device. We're connecting to the head-end device, which is then going to reach out over the network to the remote device. And then it's going to log into that remote device and pull that information down from that remote device. So this one here was able to get into that remote device, and now it's going to pull that information down, and we will let it populate into here. We do a save. I don't want to update that. Normally you would, though. Again, we went through that, so here we go. Firewall 0, 1, 2, 3. We have a signal strength. How cell tunnel is how we're going to access it. Again, if it was dial out, it would be network dial out. Network properties, this was already built into that device, so everything else should be here. The only other thing we could do, which we noticed wasn't working, is to do the enable these real-time logs. Now this should pull down that client list. It's possible because we haven't programmed a device yet, it's not coming through. So if I wanted to find out what that was, it's 0.253. Copy, and then I go back out here and I would just do a paste for there, and I would do a save. So now the telemetry data is going to come back. Real-time heartbeats and real-time log are going to come back over the LTE network to that head-end device, which is then going to drop into the OBM. Okay, so we have everything here. Now we're just going to save that. It's already been saved. And now we're going to program it. Program, reload. Again, the system is going to connect to the head-end device first. It's then going to jump out onto the LTE network, and it's going to program that remote device. Once that remote device is programmed, we can connect to the device in a similar fashion that we did in one of the other screencasts we show you. You just right-click on the device, you go connect, and the system will access the device through the head-end device. The two devices will then make a connection, and depending on whether you're device authentication or standard authentication, you're either going to get a user prompt or not. The devices are then going to pass a key, and you're going to be able to access them. So actually, why don't we just do that real quickly once this guy here is done. So if we look up under not client devices, you'll see that this guy he's bound to this group the device name, and a NOC site name. Now I could have multiple NOC devices there, and I can have multiple remote devices here. It's not a one-for-one. I can have thousands of remotes with one head end, or I can have 10 head ends and thousands of remotes. This is just a way to bind them together here. So now it's all done. So if I want to connect, I right-click, I do connect. Cell tunnel. It's automatically going to use that. We're going to connect here. It is now making an SSH connection to the client, and then it's going to reach out across the network and touch the remote. So there's entered in the IP address for the remote. You had a connection. This is looks like device authentication, and now we're into the device. So that's it. Simple.